So I now want to introduce you to zoning. We pull out your zoning card. On the back of the card is 3 steps to zoning. I developed zoning, I patented based on the threshold training system that I will get back to. I wrote a book on it. I encourage you to get a copy of it. And zoning consists of 3 colors, blue, yellow, and red. And it is the companion is a blink heart rate monitor which flashes the colors. So no longer do we have to go, oh, I don't know what 115 beats a minute means. Now it says 140 beats a minute. Now it's 178 beats a minute. It's all too confusing. And this is what's in part held back the adoption of heart rate monitors by the general public. Price, I spent $500 for my first heart rate monitor. Now we can get them for $60 and $70. And what do I do with them? And what I'm going to ask you all to do is to start with the program zoning. And I want to quickly explain that the heart of zoning is the education. Tim said, I know the first step in changing behavior, one of the first steps is learning and growing and being educated. So I want to quickly go through the 3 zones of zoning. They have a name, that's the first column on your card. The second is effort. What a heart rate monitor does is it expresses to you your effort, your intensity, how hard are you going? And it simplifies effort from a 5-zone system that we will talk about later on. We use this card in a lot of our school programs in physical education, particularly on the elementary level where we put heart rate monitors on kids, and we want to say, when you're in blue, you're really having fun, it's easy, it's comfortable, nothing hurts, and all the kids were now going to go to blue. They look at their watch, it goes to blue, and we then associate effort with feeling, which is important, that we feel our emotions, we feel our effort, we feel our environment, we are able to manage that. Then we have a little zoner character running up a set of stairs that we've increased the load, the effort, and then at the top you kind of quiet down, you don't talk, and you just focused on going red. The next column is a test we're about to take. The talk test, then the benefits. So if you want to get healthy, you're in blue. If you want to get fit or fitter, you're in yellow. And if you want to get fast, I love fast, of course. Wellness zones, which is the benefits, the different kinds of activities, the calories burned. We burn some calories in these low zones, but if you want to do weight loss and you spend all your time in blue, you're probably not going to achieve unless you go for an hour and a half or 2 hours a day, which if you're willing to do that, most Americans are time crunched, and so asking them to go an hour and a half, 2 hours a day in blue, I'd love America outside of their buildings or on a piece of exercise equipment for long periods of time. The benefits are enormous and the risk is very, very low and the comfort is wonderful. However, if you want to, endurance is a really important thing. We need endurance. We need the ability to go for long periods of time and make it sustainable. And all-out efforts are called interval training, HIIT training, 20 seconds on, 30 seconds off, different stress recover. Calories burned, you can see what the substrate is a fancy word for the type of calories, proteins, fats, or carbohydrates, which ones of those we're burning in which column, and how much time that you need to spend. So I've taken a complicated physiology, data, and numbers, and taken all of, there's no numbers on this chart when we look at some of my original works that when I was writing 20 years ago, the charts were massive numbers, and everybody would look at me and go, Sally, you're just so data-driven. I love data. America likes simplicity, so I made that very, very simple. This chart, zoning, is built on threshold. And thresholds are, which I'm now, if you turn the page and put your ambient heart rate on page 12 in the upper right corner, please. My original works, we were talking about maximum heart rate. And if I go as fast as I can, what's the highest heart rate, my maximum heart rate? And as we've evolved as exercise and applied exercise physiologists, we've realized it's pretty difficult to ask people to go all out and to get accurate maximum heart rate numbers. And from the research labs, and almost all the research today is done in metabolic threshold. And metabolic is a big word. It's the sum of all the calories you burn. And because there's a bit of a focus on weight and weight loss and caloric expenditure, threshold training is new. It's been around actually for a long time, but we haven't really implemented it a lot in your clubs or your fitness industry. But it is where our industry is going. The cycling industry, cyclists have been using threshold training for a long, long time, and it's being permeated to others. So I want to explain basically how threshold works. We start down at a very, very easy speed of 10 miles an hour. Let's just say we're on a bicycle, and this is heart rate. So I'm going slow, I have a low heart rate, I'm riding my bike a little faster, my heart rate's gonna pick up, I'm gonna go a little faster, and I hit what's called the first threshold, T1, that's where T1, threshold number 1, is the first threshold. And at that point, and I'm gonna be a little dramatic right here, so I'm riding my bike, and there is a point, a threshold, like I'm going through a door, and when I get over here, I'm in a different zone. I'm in a different effort. My substrates, those carbohydrates and proteins and fats, change. My body puts a switch on and says, you know, this got a little bit harder. I better start breathing. I'm producing this chemical called lactic acid that you probably heard about, lactate, in some of your, maybe if you haven't, it's the acidosis of the blood. So our blood starts getting a little different pH when I go from here to the first threshold. And we're going to measure this because the first threshold is the top of blue. It is that heart rate number right there. And I need to know that heart rate right there to be able to set that zone. So where is it? And you know intuitively your first threshold. You know when you're kind of warming up and you go, got a little bit harder. Yeah, I can feel it in my breathing. You know it intuitively, but we've never put a name on it to help us out or try to explain that the shift in metabolic response to exercise intensity. Okay, so this change in my ability to breathe comfortably and talk comfortably has changed. So now I am at my low T1, my first threshold. I'm going to go a little faster. My speed on my bike is going to increase, or my walking, or my swimming, and I'm going to get to this other place, the second threshold, high threshold. That's the top of yellow right here. It is this second threshold that you may have known from these old archaic days. It was called anaerobic threshold. It was called VT2, ventilatory threshold number 2. It is called lactate threshold number 2. It has a whole bunch of names, respiratory compensation threshold. So I was over here and I'm like in blue and I'm having a blast and like I can do it all day long. And I pick it up and I go, whoa, I better start breathing. But I can go for a long, long time in that yellow, that between zone between blue and red. But now I go a little faster, and I'm going a little faster, and there's another threshold. There's like, I'm going to walk through this other door, and all of a sudden it's no longer sustainable for long periods of time. That is a shift, a second shift. And in that second shift, I go from moderate to this is hard. And what happens is I stop wanting to talk. Instead of the chit-chat in a room, if you've ever done group exercise, it gets quiet. Do you remember that when you've done workouts with other people? And it's just like, I'm now needing to actually breathe out harder. I breathe out CO2, a lot of carbon dioxide, because I want to lower the pH of my blood, and you don't need to know the chemistry behind it as much as, there's this place, T2. And usually your happy place is in this yellow zone. I love this yellow zone. I'm happy. But as soon as I go through T2, my high threshold, I get over here, I go, oh, I can stay here maybe, if I'm not very fit, 10 minutes. If I'm kind of fit, 30 minutes. If I'm a Tour de France rider, I can stay for an hour. Right here. But as I go harder and harder, and I go harder and harder, and I go higher and higher the red, the less time I can stay. To my maximum that I can stay for 10 seconds. But we don't want to go to maximum. We want to find this T2. Questions about, are we okay on threshold? And it might be a new concept to you. If you're on page 12, here's a lot of description of that threshold, lots more. The reason as an exercise scientist that I love threshold training is that it's dynamic. It changes. So if I'm not very fit, my T1 might be 110 beats. I get fit, move my threshold, it might be 120 beats. I can do more work, I can go faster at a lower heart rate, less effort, at burning a lot more fat, which is one of the things we want to be really efficient at burning fat, but I can go faster. And so these numbers are dynamic. They're moving as my fitness changes. Let's write down 220. And I'm 68 years old, but let's say I'm 70, just for math, minus my age. We're going to use me as an example, 220 minus 70. So what should my maximum heart rate, if we used it, what should it be? Right, and my maximum heart rate is 195 beats a minute. It's never moved. I've measured it for 40 years. So what the equation does is says, as you get older, get worse. As you get older, get worse, get worse, get worse, get worse. Instead of, no, that formula is invalid. It's 45 beats of error, which is 2 whole zones. Most zones are about 20 beats. So it's taken a long time for us to get this out. And so we have old ideas that were planted in your brain, and Joel referenced some of those old paradigms in his introduction. We need to change them, and it's hard. And so I'm anointing you to go out and say, we don't use those formulas. We have to go, is there a formula for your blood pressure?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's one that they use.
But there's no formula that's accurate. I can't look at Shirin and know her blood pressure, her body temperature, her body weight, her body mass index. I can't know any of that. I have to measure things. And we have a little tool here to measure things, and we're really lucky to have it. We're going to measure your T1, your first threshold, and I don't want to go measure that until we get a real good clarity of what T1 is. It's the top of what color zone? Blue. So we're going to go to find out 3 data points in a minute, and you're going to have to choose a piece of exercise equipment, and this is about a 10-minute activity. And I will share that test with you in just a minute. Before I do, I want to make sure that we understand these different words and numbers on a graph, which is we're going to start down here at a really low heart rate, and we're going to go faster and faster using whatever modality you want. You can walk on a treadmill, you can use an elliptical, you could go back and forth in a room, you could go around in circles, you can whatever. At some point, you're going to hit your first threshold, and it's different for everybody. And that's what's great, is that we are different. Our physiology is different. Then you're going to go a little faster, and we're going to hit a second threshold, and we're going to stop the test right there. And for the fitness professionals in the room, the reason we stop the test is cardiac incidents on new clients happen at T2 or above most dramatically. So we take the dumplings, we give them a max heart rate test, and we have the potential of damaging and killing them. We don't want to do that. So we're going to stop the test right here where risk mitigation is really low. You could, however, go on to max and then we did the recovery. How quickly we recover is a really important assessment of how fit we are and how we do. So would you put your ambient heart rate in the upper right corner of each of the pages as we turn them? And we need to know this heart rate number called starting heart rate. So the first is, there are going to be 2-minute stages. A stage is a time period in an exercise test. So I'll say, okay, we're going to warm up going really slowly. No resistance on a bike, a cadence of 50, for example. That's how fast my RPMs, my feet would be moving. On a treadmill, no incline. I'm just walking at maybe 20. I'm just starting. When I'm up and start moving, what is my heart rate? That number is the bottom of blue. So we get 3 numbers: starting heart rate, T1, and T2. And you're going to take your little booklets with you, and we're going to, because it's hard when you're exercising to remember your numbers. And a couple of us will help also record, but if you can record, that'd be great. And then I want to make sure you know what T2 is, so that, because this is a field test. So there are 2 types of tests: lab test, I mean, I'd love to have a metabolic cart. We put a mask on you. We'd measure your oxygen and your carbon dioxide. Cost about $200 to do that test per person. It is scientifically a much more accurate. Or we give you a field test. And the reason I like field tests is you can do it on your own. It's free. It just takes a little Blink 1A heart rate monitor. And so I'm going to ask you all, so the test starts with getting starting heart rate. No resistance, nothing. What is your beginning movement heart rate? Standing up, I'm moving, I'm doing something, or sitting on a bike. Then, and I'm going to say, okay, I want you to go up 10 beats from that number. So you have 30 seconds to go up 10 beats. And this test is going to, more explanation of the test is going to come in your syllabus on the next page. And I'm going to have, you're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. The reason that quote is being used is most Americans know it. If you're a Canadian, you can say your national anthem. You can use any, you can say Mary Had a Little Lamb. I don't care what your phrase is. I care that you pay attention to your breathing. When is there disruption in your breathing pattern? When does talking become more difficult? So you're going to talk out loud. You're not going to listen to anybody else's talk. And we're going to practice this together right now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under whoever the president is at the time, with liberty and justice for all. And then I'm going to ask you the question, can you speak comfortably? And at first, you're going to say, oh, yeah, I mean, I'm at 90 beats a minute, right, or 100 beats a minute. I can speak comfortably. And we're going to go a little faster, and we're going to go a little faster. And then you're going to hit this doorway called T1. And you go, it got a little bit harder. And it got a little bit harder means I'm having to breathe more frequently. My respiratory rate increases, or the depth of my breathing. But you're going to hear it with the sound of your saying the Pledge of Allegiance. That first disruption, you can still say it smoothly. You're not saying, oh, I pledge allegiance to the, that's not. It's T1 is very subtle. It's that first shift. It's our hardest one. T2, we know. We stop talking. We don't like it. It hurts. T1 is, you might miss it, and you might go, it was that stage before. I'm going to make my T1 10 beats lower. So T1, and then we're going to go up, and there's going to be a point that we hit to where speaking is uncomfortable, and I'm going to ask you the question, could you hold that heart rate for 30 minutes? Could you hold that heart rate and whistle and shout and talk? And you're going to say, no. And this isn't a competition. This isn't like I'm going to be the last one to get to T2. This is all about you. And we'd like to accurately assess you. And we're going to do that by, and I'm going to ask you at some point when I'm not here to do this test on yourself. It is sport specific. So in a swimming pool, this heart rate monitor, Blink 1, works great. The new Blink armband works just fine. Both of them work in a swimming pool. When I swim, I love to swim. I take my little iPad and I put it on, or my iPhone. We have a free iPhone. If you have an iPhone app, that I will remind me to talk about. And I put it right next to it, and I do a 25, which is the length of most swimming pools, a 25-yard down and back called a lap, and I do that in blue. And the next one I do in yellow, and the next one I do in red. And then I take a 30-second recovery, and I can go like, this is like the most fun swim workout in the world, because I'm doing it in zones, I'm doing it in colors, and all I have to do is look, and I know what color I am. And then, so there's different workouts that you can do. So we are now going to put on a Blink armband, and I'm going to use yours, Sharon. This is a Blink armband, and it uses an optical sensor. So it is green and yellow, and we like this optical sensor because it picks up whether you're light-skinned or dark-skinned. That's why the two different colors. You're going, you see that fleshy part of my arm right there? I'm going to put that Blink armband right on there. And the way I do that is I'm going to slide it on, and then once I slide it on, I'm going to tighten the Velcro. So look at how quick and easy it is. I slide it on. I put it where that nice fleshy part is. I can put it on my bicep. I can put it at lots of different places on my body. And now I'm going to pop up on a big board, and we're going to see everybody's heart rate together. We don't know your zones, so we're going to put a setting where it's going to be gray. And you're not going to get any color, but once we start using it, it's going to pop up the color of your zone. This is not an EKG. We're not measuring electrical activity. We're measuring blood flow. And we want to put it up as high as possible below our elbow, but on that fleshy part. And the reason is we get a lot of blood flow. When there are bones and ligaments like down on the wrist, it's much less accurate. And you may discover that if you say, oh, I'm going to use it as a watch. No, it's not a watch. This is an arm band. It's going to go on your arm. I think this last statement, T2 is a governor. It's a boundary line. It's a signal light. It's saying, do you really want to go red? And I love red. Red's really good. If you're fit and healthy, do lots of red training. And so the assessment is on page, if you turn your page, put your ambient heart rate in the upper right corner. A chest transmitter belt is the electrical activity, and a blink armband is measuring blood flow. And you can read, I wrote a blog about what optical sensors are. Optical sensors are sending a light wave down, it's bouncing off your red blood corpuscles and the density of your red, so we need some red blood corpuscles, the blood flowing in and out. So the very first point you're going to go to is before we get into the writing, is you're going to get your starting heart rate number, the bottom of blue. And you're going to write it somewhere off to the side on your syllabus. Then you're going to go to down or up to 100 beats a minute. We're going to start the test at 100 beats a minute. At 100 beats a minute, you're going to do that for a minute, 2 minutes. At the end of 2 minutes, I'm going to say, will you please speak the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? And you're not going to focus on anything other than your breathing while you're saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay? At the end, I'm going to ask you the question. There's only 3 answers to the question. I'm going to ask the question, can you speak comfortably? There's the Pledge of Allegiance, just in case you needed it. And there are only 3 answers to the Pledge of Allegiance. Yes, I can speak comfortably. And I don't ask the question, can you talk? Can you whistle? It's can you speak, because I want you to speak. The next is, you're going to go another 2 minutes. We're going to take it up 10 beats. Another 2 minutes. We're going to take it up 10. At some point, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance each time. You're going to say, yes, Sally, but it got a little bit harder, and it's really subtle, right? But you're going to then circle yes, but on your chart. Then we're going to, every 2 minutes, we're going to go up, and it goes along pretty quickly. And you're going to say, oh, Sally, I can't get my heart rate up, or it goes up too fast, or that's normal, okay? Because if you're new to heart rate, it's hard to kind of manage how swiftly it goes up, because you're adjusting your cadence or your incline or whatever. And then there's a point, what does no mean? No. T2. When you circle no, you're done. The test is over. We're at the second threshold. It's not max. It's not killer hard. It's that point, remember that I said, this threshold over here, where you go, I can't speak comfortably. I don't really want to talk. I like you, but I'm going to focus. And sometimes it's called deer in the headlights. It's where your attention goes to your dashboard. If you're on a treadmill or a bike, it's just like, I better just do this work right now. Fun is over. That's a really good question to ask about delay in feedback, because yes, heart rate is averaged over typically 3 to 5 seconds. Your blink is 3 seconds. So you'll notice the number's the same, and then it updates. Because you would be surprised at how much beat-to-beat variation there is. So they normalize it so you don't freak out by making it, it's called smoothing, is the term in terms of the algorithms that are behind the wearables that are using to make it go more gently. So if I'm going to do a 100-yard dash, and I'm going to do it in the world record of 10 seconds, or maybe it's 9 seconds now, I would in 9 seconds get down there, and by the end, I would be at max, but my heart rate monitor might say 110, right, or 120, because is not enough time for it to catch up to my being at max when I'm on an all-out sprint. But is that kind of help? Okay, Trevor, you want to share a little bit about what we're doing here? So there's a little device, you might call it a collector, a receiver, or whatever. All your heart rate data is from your Blink armband is going into this bridge. And the bridge collects it and sends it to the iPad, and we display it for everyone in the room. And I'm going to put it on a setting so it's gray. The Blink armband, Gretchen, can you hold it up, is flashing, hers is flashing blue right now. Hers is flashing blue because she is in the blue zone. When you first turn it on, it flashes blue saying, I'm sending out a Bluetooth signal. There's a radio in here, and it's sending out a signal, just like your keyboard. You might have a Bluetooth keyboard or a Bluetooth telephone or a Bluetooth, right? That's a type of radio signal. And it's sending out a second. It's called a dual radio, sending out a second called ANT. It's a funny little word, ANT plus. I mean, I'm Aunt Sally, but an ANT plus. So an ANT plus is a different kind of signal that talks to this. Okay, and is an easier signal for us to use. Bluetooth, we can only have 8 people on the screen at a time. In ANT Plus, we can have 110 of you at one time collecting data. I love it. And this is a technology that I developed, not Bluetooth or ANT. The big board, the Heart Zone system, is my company owns it, and we our dream is that every facility in America and every school in America uses this technology in their coaching programs and their physical education programs. If you were a cycling coach, you could simply put the Blink armbands on your cyclist, throw this in your pocket, grab an iDevice and collect the data during a group ride. So it works indoors, it works outdoors. It's an open system. So any Bluetooth or any ANT Plus, we can pick that up. So if you might have a Timex, a Garmin, a Suunto, a Polar, we can pick all of that up. We like these armbands. Are they comfortable? Yeah. Could you wear it all day long? Yeah, yeah. Where this is a little less comfortable, signals drop more often. This signal is not going to drop at all. So you're going to really like that. And it's really rich data that you're going to see. And when you see your data on a big board, that's the display screen, you're just going to go, wow, Sally's collecting a lot. Heart Zones wants to learn how many calories you're burning, what your intensity is, what zone you're in, which direction you're going, how much time you're in the zone, what your absolute heart rate is, and when you're crossing from T1 to T2 in 3 zones, 5 zones are max. So it's really... it's been some of my life work to create what you're about to see, and it's new, and it's rock solid, but we're going to continue to develop and add features and new things, so what's coming is pretty cool. Before 9.0, we have an app which is called Heart Zones, and when I tip it, it's free, and this is your individual app. So your Blink armband talks with Bluetooth, if you want to know the technology, to the iPhone, and with ANT Plus to the group. So we're picking up 2 different signals. And what is, I have 9.0 on this phone, which doesn't make me happy, and it stores your workout inside. Wow. And that's what it begins to look like at the end of your workout. It tells you how much time you're in zone, what your average heart rate, your peak, how many calories you burned. We say it's free. It costs quite a bit of money to develop these apps, but we give them to you because we want you to use them. And then this was an interval, can you see it was an interval workout?
You do like red.
I do like red. And so we give you a lot of data if you wanted to have that data, and we now have it on the iPhone. We will be syncing it soon. And these are called buckets. And buckets say time in zone. So these are blue and green buckets. If you are getting where I'm going, you go, Sally didn't do this workout very well. The yellow bucket is in the middle, and the orange and red buckets. So you want to always warm up in blue and green. How did I do on my warm-up?
Terrible.
Thank you. Yeah. I obviously didn't. I liked yellow, right? So I don't want you to do this.
Red bucket's overflowing.
I know. It happens every single time my red bucket is spilling over. So there's optimum amounts of time in each of these zones. And this is 5 buckets. We have another one of 3 buckets. And there's different settings that you can do. And it stores those workouts. But what I love is that when I'm working out, I see my heart rate profile, that's this little graph, is active, and I see where I am. Who's number 1? Okay. So now when you look at the big board, you're going to look at that heart rate number right there. Got it? Okay, number one, you're excused. Go. Everyone can stand up, bring your book, bring something to write with. We're going to do the threshold field test.